Are we ready, Nick? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, Wing Commander Nick Hobson, who had a most illustrious career in the Royal Australian Air Force, recognised, honoured for his service in Vietnam, served in America in exchange programs in the United Kingdom, also served in Egypt with the United Nations, served for 2 years as working for the governor of Victoria, and served also with the Westpac helicopter service, the rescue service. A resplendent career, has an extraordinary knowledge of matters digital, always surprises me with something new, and it's my pleasure now to introduce him. Nick.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you very much for that very warm welcome. I do have a legitimate excuse for being late. The radar fell over in Sydney, so they had to revert back to the old style of bringing people in and out with slide strips, and the space time between landings and takeoffs is much longer until they get it all fixed up. So my apologies, but I had a very pleasant trip down and a good breakfast. What I'm about to talk to very briefly is about the new database. However, before I get into that, I just want to prelude with a prelude that will sort of help follow on from what John and Jai are going to say afterwards. And I just wanted to get this in. It'll only take a couple of minutes. And you'll have a better understanding when I get to the database if I tell you this little story now. Now, every organisation needs one of these, and ACM has one of those. Now, this thing here called Xero is a... sorry? Yeah, accounting software. In fact, we sort of double up there a little bit, but there are various reasons for that. It's a New Zealand invention, and it's very good, and it's quick for doing quick reconciliations from the cloud, so to speak. And each working day, by 8 o'clock in the morning, the feed has come down from the bank to Xero. The next thing is Databus. Now, Databus is does possibly the same sort of thing what it does in Xero. However, the situation is this, is that our database is made out of a product called FileMaker Pro. Databus is a FileMaker Pro program that works directly to and from Xero. It's about the only one that I could get a link to. So both Xero and Databus are going to play a big portion in how we get things, because the big thing is to be able to get information to and from the database into the financial system. So with Databus, it's a two-way street. It can move stuff from itself to Xero, and it can move it back the other way. So then we go on to look at the database. That square in the bottom right-hand corner is the front page of the database. And it too is a two-way street between Databus and itself. And these connections that you see in green are actually in vogue right now on the trial run that we're doing in the cloud. I'm going to see if this works here today. If not, I've got a backup plan. Going on from there, there's a thing called SendGrid. Now, it's very similar to MailChimp for anybody who knows what MailChimp is, which is a marketing tool, email tool. SendGrid didn't start off that way. It started off as being an analytic tool to help get good reception to emails that we send out. In other words, people will look at them and see them as being genuine emails from ACM. And we've been purging the whole old database, and it's worked out pretty well. I know when a file has been has arrived at its destination. I know when somebody opens it, but that's about all I know. And that's pretty typical in the industry. It allows certain things to travel globally, and those two things have been very important for us, so that I can follow the emails through to see if they bounce or whatever. So we have a wherewithal to tidy up the database. We don't have, out of the 11,000 odd names on this old database, we have very few emails, because at the time of the referendum, email wasn't really a big thing in those days. But now it's everything. Email is a very important part of what we're on about.
So is it an auto-respondent?
I'll just go on very quickly, because I really don't want to dwell on this area too much. I want to get into the database. I just want you to have this short background so you'll understand the database better. So SendGrid, we've got an established green link there too. And one day, maybe, we can feed emails back into the database directly. But I haven't gone there, and I won't be going there for a while, but that's a possibility. So anything you see now with the dotted line and a red arrow means that these are possibilities that can happen. We haven't actually put them together, but that's where we're looking at. There's Mailchimp doing the same sort of thing. That can definitely be linked to FileMaker database in both directions. Now to the website. I'm not going to go on to it there. It's only there for a matter. John will be speaking at large about that, as David just said. And it's going to be rejuvenated anyway, but I'll just try and go from here. Now we're looking at links of what we can do now from the website into the accounting side of things. And there we can then go have a PayPal spot on the website there where you can pay for donations or whatever that may be, and it can go into PayPal. From there, PayPal can go into Xero. And another one is Stripe, which I had heard of, but John might deal about this a bit later. It's very good also, and is sort of equivalent to PayPal. But if we have both of those, then we widen our ability to accept from a variety of people who have different things or processes when they go online. And I'll just take that up there. Now, the next thing is a thing called Eventbrite. Some of you may have got involved with that today. Was there anybody here who said, well, how was your reception? Did it work out well for you? Yeah. That's good. So we haven't made our minds up on that, but we certainly know that it can be linked to Xero. We certainly know it can be linked to the database. So if you just bear with me for a minute, I'll go out of that one, and I'm going to try my luck here. I really am. I'm just going to have to put this down for a minute. This is just a quick privacy statement. You either accept or reject. If you reject, it won't even let you go any further. If you accept, then you can start to get in. And now, it is now logging on, and it's now sending back information of whatever. It can actually do this bit here. It can actually do a map, but it doesn't say up there long enough for you to do that. So that's now given us an entry there. Now, normally in the layouts, we would have ended up at there. And that is going to show us where we've got up here ACM National and New South Wales office. It's a combined venture. And we'll have databases for all of the various jurisdictions. The ACT one is getting very close to being finished, and we plan to do the Victoria one after that. It's all in the one pile of goods, but it makes things easier that you can just deal with your own people in your own way. But it is basically very similar to what we'll be doing in the National Office. So if we go to the supporters database, that's it. And you could sit there in an office anywhere in Australia or the world and do that. I was trying to get it off the air before, but it didn't work. But I did it at home yesterday, but there you go. So what we've got up here is an area where we just, if we wanted to add a brand new record to the database, we just click on that button and fill out the details. And it would show you the current record number. Everybody has a record number. They're new numbers now. If you had one previously that's different from what you've got now, you can't go back to your old one because of the way we had to start the new database. We've also, at Jai's good idea, setting up a family thing now where you can add family members into the one record. So instead of sending 6 or 7 emails to 6 different members of the family, you can just send one to the family and just deal with it that way. But we would still count them in any count in the overall supporters. So up here, there's one here, it's saying one there, and it's giving the total of supporters that we're currently showing in the database now. And there are 3 main areas where we enter data into about individuals. We just simply click on that and you start typing in the details here. Now, if you wanted a second layer here, you just simply press the plus button and it'd put a 2 in there, and then you fill the data out for the other person, and so on as you go down the line. Down here, we just do the basic house address system. And you can't see it there, but if we enter somebody from overseas, parts of those boxes will disappear and special boxes for the overseas people will turn up to handle the variations. And here's probably coming the most important part, is the way we communicate with you. We give the option of homework, mobile phone number, email address, which this person doesn't have, but as I said earlier, it's going to be the critical thing for really running stuff. As you well know, sending a letter today is very, very expensive. Back in the early 90s, when we were working on the campaign in the very early days, we sent out an enormous amount of mail. Mind you, we used to get discounts before we box it up in the right numbers. But to do that today would make you go broke. So we really need to encourage people to get an email address. And I recognise that some people in their more senior years, where I'm heading, and David's heading ahead of me, that as time flows by, the younger people will get older and they'll end up with email addresses all the way through. So we understand well that it may not happen to everybody, but we need to encourage people to get an email address wherever possible. Down here in the bottom where you see the green, well, these are actually green buttons, they're showing up a bit tingish yellow. That's just information to make sure that we've got the salutation right and the addressee right, and it gives the date that the record was created, last modified, and the old legacy numbers on the far right there. There are 2 there, could have been one or the other, we don't know. And down here is a system to write a letter in good style, and I'm just going to press this on the hope that something might come out. So it won't do it because I've still got to set it up properly for the iPad. I'm setting it up on desktop at the moment, so most of the stuff has gone from there. But nonetheless, you can do a proper styled letter and email it out, and you can put the contents in the text of the email as well with that. Here in the bottom three hand corners are going to be the main tools for finding a person. If you know their record number, you just press that button and I'll just type in here my number, and continue, and there's my name up there now. So there you go. And so that means it's very quick to get to that person. Once you've got there, then you can amend the data or whatever as before. The next...
Everyone will be able to update their own details.
No. That's a pretty difficult process to do. It can be done. We can probably look at that later on. I'm not too sure. FileMaker has some pretty restrictions when it comes out to doing multiple accounts, and it doesn't seem to be a very good way to go. The other option, apart from that, is to know the first name and the last name of the person, or you just put in the last name, but you probably more than likely get, I don't know how many Hobsons there are, but we'll find out. There are that many Hobsons. So you can pick out the one you want, and then if you want to go back to the form, you just click that button there. So I'll just click on mine if it's there at the top, and it goes back to me and get up there. So you can move very quickly. So when you've found what you want, you can go back there and do work. Now, on the right-hand column up the top, we've got a system there for notifications. We've got a place in there for newsletter if we decide to go that route again. We've got an events notifications nationally, so if anybody wanted to be notified of an event nationally, we could tick that box. And then because we're going to do the states and territories differently, we can then even make it more finite for their case, and they could just click that. And the ACM are looking at getting the 500 club back up. I don't know too much about that because that happened after my time. But Jai, I'm sure, can talk about that. Now, in the bottom, in the purple ones down here, we'll look at those quickly now. This address and salutation was a thing that I've put here. It won't be used much. It'll only be used if there's more than one person, and it's there just to correct any issues that might pop up down here. It just self-fixes a lot of stuff. Mainly in the code where I've said if it's this, do that, and all that sort of thing. It may need additional work on it, but that can be done at any time. Supporter notes. So if you want to keep a record of something going on, well, then you can just type in something here, test, and there you go, and it will be there. And you see now in the very right-hand corner, 1, which signifies that there's one note in there. There. So if there's nothing there, there are no notes. If there's 5 there, there are 5 notes. And notes can be deleted at will. There's no need to keep old stuff if you don't need them. I'm going to skip over the next 3 very quickly for a moment, and I might come back to those. Now, one of the problems we have, especially now, is that with people passing on who have been with us in the early days, sometimes you get the mail back saying X is deceased and therefore please remove the name from the database. Sometimes we get mail that we don't know if they're deceased or where they are. So we'll hang on to them for a year before we make that critical decision of deleting them from the database. So in my case, if let's say that some mail that had come to me from ACM got returned to David, we could do this in and mark it as being returned, and you see now down in the bottom left-hand corner that there's been mail returned. And it notes the date, and in a year's time from today, it will show a different colour red with the instruction to delete that record. So we give them 12 months to come back to life, so to speak, if that is the case.
David, would anyone attempt to make phone contact with those people?
Me, Nick. Nick is my name.
I find in my area of administration, if letters come back, some will see still another note on the envelope. But I find that people move from one place to another. That perhaps just to give them a call on their mobile phone or attempt a couple of phone calls, that can clarify things.
I'm sure we do that.
Yeah,
it's just
good.
at the moment we're working off a very old database,
Yes.
and it's very hard. But we are getting
can
letters
understand.
back. But we are getting letters back. But that's something that can be taken into account, and I'm sure we do that in the longer term.
That happens on average once every 4 years. People move address.
Yeah. So I'm just going to take you to the very top now. Welcome, which we saw supporters. Map just gives us a map of the location. Events. Now, we mentioned Eventbrite before, but before I knew of Eventbrite, I'd started working on a particular event system for ACM anyway. Now, it's basically nearly finished. It's got a bit of tightening up to do. We're not going to throw it out. We're going to keep it. And we haven't formally gone over to Eventbrite yet, but we'll still keep it because it's got lots of stuff in it that can assist for things that we may not want to use Eventbrite for. Finance, well, we spoke briefly about that earlier. It's a blank space at the moment, but it will start to fill out in time. Media. So these are stuff that we've put in here that's valuable for people like David who write a lot and get on the air a lot, and he can go back and research stuff. So if we have an article here, for example, and that brings you up, so you've got some more information there and you've got the article there. Now, you don't have to worry about being able to read it because the view, and I've said it, we should be able to, and now it's coming up into the full size, so you can scroll through and read it quite clearly. There's so you can, that's a series of a list of those earlier before. You can even tag them, 1 or 2 or 3 if you wanted to hold them and to come back later on and work with them to get the information out. And it's sort of a scrapbook in a way, but an electronic one that can be shared around.
Just a question, does that system scan newspapers?
No. David will send something to me, or I'll read something, or Joel will read something, and we just put it on. It takes nanoseconds to put on. The next one is a very important one, and it's one that I had done a version of before the 1999 referendum, but was never used. But this is a way of mustering our people to assist in any referendum on the Republic if it came back again. My aim is to make sure we've got the tools available to do it now, as opposed to worrying about it in 1 year's time or 2 years' time or 3 years' time. So principally what this does is it's got the entire current booth system here. There's about 8,500 records. This is just one booth, but there are 8,500 of them. We're just looking at one of them. And what we can do from that, in fact, it's telling you here the number of booths in this suburb of Barton is only one. Sometimes it'll be 2 or 3, depending on what suburb it is in Australia. I've also got here the 2016 election voter turnout for the Barton booth. So you know just how the voting has gone at that last 216 and how many brochures or whatever you may need to have there on the day to assist people in a referendum. And under here is the 1999 Republic referendum data. Now this is getting very old and it can be used but only with caution if you recognise that it's getting very old data, especially if 1 in 4 people move in, or people move every 4 years. And there are some blank spots there where the polling place has been named, renamed, and whatever they do as time goes on. I mean, we've now got 151 federal divisions, so things do change. There we go. So where we go from here. So what level do you want to do things in? Well, you can start up here and just have a state leader to worry about the whole thing in the state, which you might be able to do in the Northern Territory. In New South Wales, you probably want a division leader, and Victoria as well. And then you can, if you have to, you can go down to suburb leader. So you can really start to spread out and muster your manpower or female power, whatever it is these days. And then we can go to the extreme and actually booth manning and scrutineer manning, if that's what we want to do. I'm not saying that's what you have to do, but you've got the flexibility to flow through that whole structure, and you don't need a pencil to do it. So how do we get somebody in here? I'm not in the ACT, but what I'll do is I'll say that I'm going to be a booth monitorer. So up here it's asking for my record number and my family number, which is 1. I hit go, and now you see that my name has suddenly appeared down here. And so you can have different names in all of those boxes down there. So that's another reason why the family number is a good idea that John wanted, because it means that it gives the ability to put more people into the system, more manpower if it's available. There are other good things about this. This is in Canberra. Now that's just pulling from the AEC's data. It's pulling out all the people in Barton. But do you notice that over here, it's shoving in the phone number and the email addresses of the people, which means if you're running the show, then you say, oh, I can get Joshua at Hotmail, whatever, see if he'll help out on the day. It's one way of doing it. And this is similar, but it's done in a different way. See, Joshua's not there. Oh, I think, yeah, it's another assistant. I'll just say that for the time being. Now, here's another one. This might take a little while to pull up, because it's got to go and look outside on there. May not do it. Well, what would be there is a map of Barton, and there'd be a little, the typical Google stamp over where the booth actually is. So you know where it is, what street, whatever.
Is So you could do a query of any combination of fields to search for what you want to look for.
There, well, it's giving you the options that are there, like it's listing all the booze in the first one, listing all the booze in Barton, and then from that you look at the names of all the people who are living in Barton. We only had about 3 names there, but hopefully, and that's another reason why we're encouraging people now to tell us the division that they live in and the state electoral district that they live in, just in case there are state issues that come up. That way we have the data available beforehand and not after. So that's campaign. Look, there's more things to the campaign in the back in terms of where you're working with it. You can get lists of booths and all that sort of thing, and you can get various reports, whether it be by jurisdiction, suburbs, or polling place, or whatever, or wherever you can find out all the ACT people in the booths, not the people themselves, but all the ACT booths, so that you can quickly work from them. Look, the others are just sort of assistant things. The main thing is the front form. We can do most of the work anyway. You can print out reports as well for this. Next is assets. This is just a means if we've got computers and things, we can keep a record of them, who they were signed out to, and all that sort of thing. And it gives a better detail, and you can get varying reports on it. So that's a deprecation report. Let's get rid of that. Oh, go straight back there. And there's an inventory report as well. You can either email it or... No, that one doesn't work on iPad. Some things don't work on iPad, but that's a design function, nothing to do with me. So we go from there. We've got a spare page and then settings. Now, settings are where we can go in and change things easily without needing technical gurus to do the work. So if we wanted to, for example, update the convener list, this is where we would update the convener list, simply by doing a new record, adding the record number, the family number, and then it's so jigged in the system that it would come up like that. And we can just delete it and manipulate it. There are many of these sorts of things. I'm just trying to think if there's any. We've now got roles for the ACM. We sort of haven't done that before, and I thought it's a good thing that lists the conveners and whatever, who does what, and that can be handy when we're mailing and all that sort of thing.
I see you have a salutation and address your correction, presumably.
Yeah.
So if somebody is in Noble, but they're made up here,
Yeah.
Lord, you change the name.
That's right. We use part of that as...
Or knighthood.
Yeah. Oh. Can I have one of those? Yeah, so that's where to get in to do the easy stuff. There's databases, like everything, have to be maintained, and there'll be a lot of work that will still have to be ongoing and done in the coding and all of that sort of thing. But the good thing is, once it's up in the cloud, I can do that from home. I can code it there and then fix it and do it quite easily and quickly. Luckily, I've got very good high-speed internet to work with. It would be painful if it's slow. That's the only thing. So what I want to do now is then, we spoke briefly about the jurisdictions, and we had the list of the states and territories there. So So this is the ACT one that I'm working on. Now, it is a different database, but it's in part of the mix, so to speak. So if anything is changed here, it's got to go through to the national database. If it's changed on the national database, it's got to show up here. And that's the biggest problem. If people have their own databases, then you can't marry them off. And this is an important way that somebody in, who's the boss in ACT? Yeah. He might want to change something. Well, that's fine. It'll show up in the main site as well. We should put that to the test. I'll do that afterwards.
Can I ask a couple of technical?
Sure.
So is it a relational database, so the data only appears once, no matter what? So if Gary Kent alters it, it altered right across all. Anyone accessing it from Perth gets the same data.
Well, not on that particular one. This will only list the ACT people plus Eden Monero. It's a special deal that we did in the very, very early days with the ACT. I don't know whether you realise or not, but Canberra is surrounded by Eden Monero, totally. And
I live there.
Oh, well, there you go. And it made sense back in the early 90s when we were first approached from the Canberra group. And we agreed because we felt that it would help drive a bigger base for the ACT, even though you're getting another federal division.
So are you saying they're separate state databases, or is it all?
No, not really, not really.
No.
So there's only one host and one database?
Yes, but they are relationable. They are in relation with
They
one
can be
another.
looked at separately.
They can be looked at.
Yep.
That's what we're doing there now.
The other thing is you've shown us a lot of powerful ways in which the data can be used, but who's going to do all the data entry? It seems to me that it'd be very good to have a website where people could offer you their own data,
Yes.
like a membership site.
Yes, we were spoken to before about that. With FileMaker Pro, there's an issue with the number of accounts you can have, and apparently it is unreliable, but maybe John might be able to assist us in that regard with CRM or whatever. But this has been a really good vehicle to build up a lot of information on it, which you may not be able to do on other platforms.
There are autoresponders, MailChimp is one of them,
Yeah.
which will keep your database for you, and people can enter their own data
Yes,
from...
well, you might have noticed earlier we did talk about linking MailChimp with the database, and what it does, it actually syncs the data. It just syncs, if there's a change to that person's email address, it'll sync it back and forth.
Thank you for the clear explanation. I just had a couple of questions.
Sure.
One is, I probably didn't listen clearly, but when you had that database with someone's phone number and email,
Yes.
and I thought you said it was from the AEC, but normally
No.
it's just one you had. Because I know normally with elections, candidates have access to...
No. Let me make it quite clear.
Yes.
We have the AEC data, which anybody can download.
That's yeah, I understand about the boost and that, but so...
But when you see a name against it, we've put the name.
You put the name in.
We've put the name and the telephone.
So the
number.
second part is, so I used to belong to a group in New South Wales, so if I wanted to contact all those people again,
Yes.
it may be possible when you've done more work to find those people
Oh,
again.
locate people? Yes.
Yes, in a
Yes,
certain
yes,
area, so
yes,
that's okay.
yes.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Yes, let me make it quite clear. There's no link, real technical link with AEC to our database. We're just providing the AEC information as a tool to use alongside our database. Everybody clear about that one? I should have turned off the... Well, look, I don't have a lot more to say. Are there any more questions?
I've got one. Are people going to be able to join and when they join, they create their own profile and put in fields, address,
Yes.
and, you know.
Yes.
Are we going to be able to do that online?
Well, I thought that's what we just spoke about, but
Short answer.
yeah,
Short answer is yes.
yeah.
That's vital to keeping everything up to date.
Yeah, that'll be the necessity of updating the website along with that, but that's John's thing.
That'd be a good segue.
An excellent segue.
Yes, I have a question. I'm still on L plates as far as computers and emails go. Anyway, I can't read the email down the bottom. It's too small. Could you put it up a bit clearer, please?
Oh, it's sort of being able to read it there in its form. We've got the capability, we just press buttons, we don't even look at the email. We set it, we just set it, and it knows it's going from that email. So it's that's where SendGrid has come in really helpful. So
These screens, though, are very, very few people who see them.
oh, this would only be very few people within the ACM range. Those have got are continually working on it. I would imagine in the early days it's going to be the state representative or one offside alongside that. I don't see it. I've volunteered to keep doing the New South Wales stuff or whatever. I'll keep doing it until it's right. Well, I'm happy to pass on.
Thank you very much, Nick. I forgot to mention that Nick is also an expert on matters vice-regal because you were ADC to the Victorian Governor, were you not?
I certainly was. That was May 67 through 67, 68, May 69, 2 years with Sir Henry Wedeke, who was in fact Victoria's first Australian-born governor. He was a good guy, and he was a monarchist.